The only thing that matters with sex is whether or not you're having fun at the party, right? So, whatever you are doing at the party, as long as you're having a good time and as long as you're communicating with your partner, then you're doing it right. Welcome to the Sexuality Clinic Podcast, designed to help you deepen emotional and physical connections, prioritize your pleasure, and build stronger, more intimate relationships. Hosted by Canadian clinical sexologist Roxana Smallwood. That's me. This show offers a shame-free space for candid, science-backed discussions on sexual health, body literacy, anatomy, self-exploration, and relationships, both solo and partnered. Whether you're seeking to better understand your body, explore your desires, or communicate your sexual needs with confidence, each episode provides actionable steps and expert insights that will empower you to take control of your sexual expression. From understanding the nuances of intimacy and pleasure to building healthier, more fulfilling relationships, this podcast is your go-to guide for all things sex and connection. Join us as we dive into conversations about sexuality, love, and relationships, while also tackling topics like sexual expression, communication, and self-care. Ready to prioritize your pleasure and start building the intimate life you deserve? Tune in now and don't forget to download my free checklist, join the waitlist for my online course, or check out my online adult shop at thesexualityclinic.com. Subscribe today and start your journey toward more confident, connected, and pleasurable relationships. Welcome back to Exploring Pleasure in Relationships. We are here on episode 6. Yes, we're doing a podcast. We're having fun, keeping it casual, enjoying connecting over a quick chat. I don't like to keep these running too long. I am a Canadian clinical sexologist. My name's Roxana Smallwood, and I am here to help you dive deep into sexual health and relationship dynamics. Today, we're going to be talking about understanding sexual desire. So, we're going to use a lot of what I learned through Emily Nagoski's work. She wrote Come As You Are and then wrote Come Together, both absolutely fabulous books. If you've got the time to take a read, I do recommend those. She really goes deep into the science, but writes it in a way that is very easy to understand and apply to your life almost immediately. Today, we're going to unpack this topic, the science of sexual desire, especially looking at how accelerators and brakes play a role in our experiences of arousal and desire. As I mentioned, this is inspired by Dr. Emily Nagoski's groundbreaking book, Come As You Are. Have you ever had an experience where you just weren't really in the mood? I mean, I would expect that you have. Most people experience varying desire throughout their lives and throughout the week and possibly throughout the day, most likely throughout the day. So, Emily Nagoski introduces the concept of the dual control model, which explains sexual desire as a system governed by two mechanisms. We've got the accelerator and the brake. The accelerator responds to anything stimulating or exciting, while the brake reacts to things that make you uncomfortable, anxious, or distracted. You can think of the accelerator as the things that turn you on. Could be flirting, could be physical touch, could be a romantic setting, could be your partner doing the dishes or putting the kids to bed. And the brake are things like stress, distractions, the daily routine, feeling like you have more of the household weight on your shoulders. Even an unresolved argument with your partner can bring on those breaks. Why does this matter? Both mechanisms can work together. And if you understand which contexts in your life put those brakes on, then you'll have a better understanding of how to address those breaks. If you have a good understanding of what contexts light up that accelerator and get you feeling in the mood, then you'll have a better understanding of how to have your accelerator kind of functioning in your favor. Both can be turned on at the same time. You can have some kind of an experience where your brakes are engaged and your accelerator is on and you're feeling stuck. 1% of our population can identify with the term asexual, which means really no desire for sex at any given time. There are deeper conversations that we can have about that. But today, we're going to talk about wanting to improve your sex life and maybe even have your interest in sex maybe match or come to a compromise with a partner on the frequency of sex. Let's step back for a minute. Let's start with desire differences. In a relationship, desire differences can be quite tricky. If one partner is wanting sex often and the other partner is seeing it as kind of a chore, there may be more going on under the surface than we realize here. But it could also just be that there's not an interest in the same level. And so to really have a conversation about what sort of frequency would be right for the couple. There's no instruction manual. People ask me all the time, how much sex should I be having, or is it normal that we have sex once a week, or is it normal that we have sex 3 times a day? Is it normal that we have sex once a month? These kinds of questions are not really questions I can answer because each person is unique, their needs differ, their desires differ, and the only thing that matters with sex is whether or not you're having fun at the party, right? So, whatever you are doing at the party, as long as you're having a good time and as long as you're communicating with your partner, then you're doing it right. I looked back to a text over here. This is called Sizzling Sex for Life, written by Michael Castleman, the world's most popular sex writer. And he says here, how often do Americans do it? I'm Canadian. Yes, I'll use this American book, though, to share some information with you. He says he reviewed half dozen most widely cited studies in every age group, and no matter how long lovers had been together, the frequency varies substantially. We're not going to talk about the frequency. I'm not even going to give you a piece of information for you to cling on to that you may use to determine whether you're normal or not. Okay, we're not going to even go there. What I'm going to share is that race has no impact, region has no impact, and work doesn't have an impact as well. So, work meaning couples with one stay at home spouse generally have the same frequency of sex as two income couples. So, what does have an impact is the stage of the relationship. So, the hot and heavy period typically lasts 6 months to a year, after which the frequency almost always declines. Doesn't have to be that way, though. I'll talk more about that after. Age frequency almost always declines with age, but the decrease is rarely steady. It usually happens in steps with plateaus and drops. Happiness frequency generally tracks relationship satisfaction. So if you're satisfied in your relationship, you're probably having more sex than if you're unsatisfied in your relationship. Affairs, compared with monogamous spouses, those who dally generally have more sex, just not entirely with their primary partners. Okay. Health. So, sex is a great way that the body celebrates vitality. Health does have an impact in your frequency of sex. Education. The curve is an inverted U with the right arm truncated. So, those with less than a high school education typically have the least sex. Frequency increases with high school diplomas and bachelor degrees. But advanced degrees often mean somewhat less whoopee, he states there. Religion. So faith has little to do with frequency, but those who consider non procreative sex sinful do it less. Long term cohabitation. Compared with married spouses, committed unmarried couples generally have somewhat more sex. Pregnancy. Expecting has no consistent impact on frequency. However, some pregnant women want more sex, others want less, and some experience no change. Those with young children, the myth is that parents of young kids don't have the time or energy for sex. That is true for some, but parents who prioritize lovemaking may do it as often as they did before parenthood. It doesn't tell you which way, more or less, but these are shown to have an impact. Divorce, those in miserable, sexless relationships often hope for more romps soon after their divorce, but it is unlikely because divorce is traumatic and the adjustment takes time and usually reduces libido and frequency for about a year. Single parenthood. Some single parents don't have much sex, others maintain their parenthood frequencies, and some make more love. The biggest one of all is the individual differences. So, individual differences account for 80% of the variance in frequency of sex. All of those big long list of things that I just mentioned, things like Stage of relationship, age, happiness, affairs, health, education, religion, long term cohabitation, pregnancy, young children, divorce, remarriage, single parenthood. These all contribute to only 20% of the factors that account for your desire or your frequency of sex. So that means that individual differences account for 80%. Our sexual desire, frequency, and repertoire are unique as our taste in food. Some people love liver, others can't stand it. Similarly, some folks want sex more or less than others, and that's just who they are. All right, it's kind of a long piece on frequency and interest in sex. What I really wanted to touch on is the keys for overcoming all of that. What do you think is the key to great sex over the long term? Hmm. Have a think on that for a second. Honestly, Emily Nagoski gives it away in her book Come Together right at the start before she even gets into her first chapter. She gives it away in saying that the three characteristics of partnerships that sustain a strong sexual connection: first, they are friends. Or, to put it more precisely, they trust and admire each other. Second, they prioritize sex. That is, that they decide it matters for their relationship. And third, instead of accepting other people's opinions about how they're supposed to do sex in their partnership, they prioritize what's genuinely true for them and what works in their unique relationship. And what do? These friends who prioritize sex and prioritize each other over any prefabricated notions of what sex is supposed to be, they co create a context that makes it easier to access pleasure. That's it. It is such a beautiful thing to be able to communicate clearly with a partner about your desires, to clearly communicate your brakes, your accelerator, and to listen to what their brakes and their accelerators may be, and to co create situations where you may both experience the most pleasure. Pleasure is a birthright. You're responsible for your own pleasure. A large part of that responsibility comes from having to communicate with your partner, providing them feedback, providing them information that they can use to help co create contexts that will have enjoyable experiences had by all parties involved, right? So, personal accelerators and brakes. Identifying your personal triggers is a good first step. Okay. So, everyone has different accelerators and brakes. Like, I'm talking, it could be the sound of somebody chewing, could just put those brakes on right in the moment for you. It can be a quick halt. Absolutely not. I found something that triggers my brakes, and you can either turn up the music or talk about it or, solve it your own way. What works for one person may be a complete turnoff for someone else. For example, some people might find that a playful teasing approach is an accelerator, while others may need more emotional connection first. So try keeping a journal to track what turns you on and what interrupts your arousal. You can reflect on recent experiences and note anything that felt like an accelerator or a brake. This can give you great insights into your own unique arousal patterns. So, if we look at the shared responsibility aspect of managing a household and desire, studies have shown that an imbalance in shared responsibilities can significantly impact sexual desire. So, when one partner feels overburdened with chores or emotional labor, it can activate their brakes, creating feelings of resentment or exhaustion that ultimately lower their desire. If you can sit down with your partner and discuss ways to share the load fairly, this may mean adjusting schedules or setting up a routine where you both feel supported. Taking those steps can really help to reduce the tension, ultimately creating a more conducive environment for intimacy. If you're feeling worn out from household responsibilities, definitely talk to your partner about ways they might be able to lighten your load or outsource. There's a lot to be said for maybe freeing up some of your time by asking for help from others, whether it's paid or friends or family who can come and take the baby or take whatever your responsibilities may be. Take the dog for a big walk, help with cleaning around the house. Different stages in our life require different levels of support. And I have seen so many clients who really struggle with asking or accepting help. The pride that comes with doing things all by yourself, it may not be worth it. There are things that you have to compromise on, right? So if you're doing everything all by yourself for some sense of pride, it may be taking away from your connection with your partner or the feeling of trust in one another or security or your ability to really just fully relax if you're always on the go and managing too many things all the time. So, even speaking with a counselor could be a good suggestion if you're feeling like there's an emotional burden or too much that you're carrying and you're looking for ways to kind of solve that in a partnered relationship. Speaking about communicating, focusing on communication and the power of context is also a fabulous sort of a solution. Okay. So, talking openly with your partner about what turns you on and what turns you off can be incredibly freeing. However, it's equally important to discuss what makes you feel safe and connected. So, it doesn't have to be about always turning on, it can be about feeling safe, feeling good in your relationship. When you feel understood, your brake system is less likely to be triggered. There's a book I read called Nonviolent Communication, absolute fabulous read. It talks about using feeling words to describe how you are feeling, but be careful to choose which words. So, something like, I'm feeling unsupported doesn't necessarily communicate a true feeling word. That's almost communicating a judgment of the other person. It's easy to get defensive if they feel there's a judgment being placed on them. So if you say, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling tired, I'm feeling that there's too much responsibility on me with A, B, and C, there are just different words to communicate the same kind of sentiment, but without the defensiveness. Think through different feeling words that you might use to describe how you're feeling, and then think, is this me putting the blame of my feeling on someone else that they should have done something like support me so I would feel more supported? It's a questionable one, right? So, the nonviolent communication book also teaches that if you're communicating with someone, the communication happens when the message is received. Unless the message that you intended to send gets received, then the communication isn't happening as intended. What I mean by that is perhaps a partner says to you, wow, nice dress. And you think, oh my gosh, how dare they? The tone they use, what I heard was, oh, you look horrible in that dress. So, what you can say is, what I heard you say was, you don't really like my dress because you used a sarcastic tone. And then the person giving the communication can say, that was not my intention. I actually think you look beautiful in the dress. And I'm sorry if my tone came across wrong. Or, something along these lines, where you basically say, what I heard you say was, did I get that right? You fill in the blanks. Do your best to communicate in a way that does not bring any kind of defensiveness in the words that you choose. So, for example, using the word you shouldn't really be a part of a feeling statement, right? The word you in communication and taking things the wrong way, we're all taking things given our context, given our understanding of the world and the experiences that we have had in our lives. And some people are just used to hearing things with a bit of a negative tone, or maybe they think that there's something deeper to what you're saying. So to really clarify that and to be clear in your communication with your partner and to not get defensive or to kind of give the opportunity to clarify before getting defensive, that's a great approach. In a summary for today, we talked about identifying our brakes and accelerators, so thinking about what increases your desire and what shuts it down. We talked about getting clear on these factors And when you are clear on these factors, that it can lead to breakthroughs in your intimate life. We talked about sharing responsibilities. So when you and your partner are aligned in sharing some of your daily life responsibilities, it can positively impact you, both your stress levels and your relationship dynamic. And communicate openly and set the right context. So if you talk openly with your partner and share your needs and work to create an environment where both of you feel emotionally and physically supported, then that is ideal, right? Remember, I just want to summarize that the three characteristics of partnerships that sustain a strong sexual connection are: first, that they are friends; second, that they prioritize sex; and third, instead of accepting other people's opinions about how they're supposed to do sex in their relationship, they prioritize what's genuinely true for them and what works in their unique relationship. So if you do still have desired differences, my recommendation is to sort of have an open conversation about the frequency of sex that you'd like to be having with your partner, and then make plans to get there. Okay. Maybe somebody wants 3, 4 times a week. Maybe somebody wants once or twice. Perhaps you can meet in the middle and set aside some time for intimacy, but remember to prioritize your time together and your relationship so that you'll have happiness for the long run. So, if you're feeling disconnected or struggling with desire, remember that it's perfectly normal to have breaks. By exploring these factors, you'll be taking a positive step toward understanding yourself and building a deeper, more fulfilling connection. We do not have to remain interested and active in sex at all times. There are seasons of our life. Maybe you've got a busy time of year. Maybe you're an accountant and tax season is just a hard no. Well, we can come up with different ways to remain connected and to feel supported through communication, right? So remember that desire is unique to each of us. It can change over time. Embracing these aspects of yourself with compassion can lead to the kind of intimacy that feels meaningful and satisfying. You deserve to feel connected and feel desire in ways that align with who you are. So, thank you for joining me on this episode of the Sexuality Clinic podcast, where we explore pleasure and relationships. Don't forget to subscribe and tune in for more episodes as we continue to explore the many facets of pleasure, intimacy, and self discovery. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. I believe you can put a typed in review with Apple Podcasts only. You can put comments in Spotify. Your feedback helps me to reach more listeners, and I would love to make sure that all of these topics get discussed in sexual relationships so that everyone I encounter can have better sex, because people who talk about sex have better sex. And don't forget to prioritize your pleasure. Your pleasure is your responsibility, not your partner's. Although it does help if you have a partner who is invested in your pleasure. It is a birthright. We're going to be talking next week about different styles of bedroom accessories, what to look for, and what to consider when bringing the idea of trying a new toy into a relationship. That's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Talk to you next week.